You are listening to Inspired Caring with Michele Magner, episode number 130. Hello, welcome to Inspired Caring. I'm your host, Michele Magner. If you are caring for an older family member, this is the podcast for you. Each week, I bring insight, tips, inspiration, and strategies to help you care for the people that you love without losing yourself along the way. Having cared for both of my grandmothers, I've helped manage everything from hospital stays, households full of belongings, to navigating senior living and end-of-life care. And I've worked in senior living as a result of that experience, serving my residents and their families as they've been on this journey too. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you enjoy this episode of Inspired Caring. Hello, y'all. We are stepping towards Thanksgiving week. I am so excited because my mama is here and we have some really fun things planned and a lot of delicious, amazing meals planned. The last 2 weeks have been, I think, nothing short of magical. It's just felt like everything has been so good and aligned and yummy. Yesterday, I had such a great day with this incredible high-flying energy. So I just am continuing to find myself surrounded by the most wonderful women, all of them working to move the needle in their respective industries. I hope that you are finding people in your life that elevate you, that lift you up, that help you feel good. And if you're struggling with that right now, man, I see you, because there are these little windows of time in life where it just feels like that can be a challenge. So I hope you are feeling all of this goodness and magic that I've been soaking up, and use it as you need in your own life. Feel free to take it and run with it, all that energy. Today, I want to talk about caregiver roles. I have talked about this in the past within that we all are wired differently. We have different strengths that we bring to the table as part of a caregiving team as a family. And today I want to focus more on the roles of primary family caregiver and secondary family caregiver. So I'm going to talk through some of the scenarios of who would be doing what in a primary caregiver role or a secondary caregiver role. But mostly, this episode is about if you find yourself in a secondary caregiver role, so that you can understand what's needed of you and how you can better help. So the primary family caregiver is oftentimes the power of attorney. And they are probably living in the same city as the person that needs help. Not necessarily. So if I said that and you're like, oop, that's not me, don't leave. Because sometimes, however, it could be an out-of-town daughter or spouse. It could be an in-town daughter or spouse that is actually doing the helping. They're in that primary role. And maybe there's an out-of-town sibling. Oftentimes, it's the brother who is the power of attorney. So for our discussion today, when I'm talking about the primary family caregiver, it is the person who is in the weeds of caring with the person. The primary caregiver is the one who is managing doctor's appointments. They're trying to figure out if people should still be driving. They're really trying to assess what is happening and what needs to be done next. They're the ones who are trying to actually navigate the situation, which has either been planned for properly, or they are flying by the seat of their pants, just trying to get through a day with no plan. And Like either there's a plan or there's no plan. And so this primary family person is just in the weeds, thick of it, trying to get stuff done. The secondary caregivers are the people who are watching what is happening. Hopefully they have some empathy, but there's some interest, concern. They may be offering ideas, opinions, suggestions, and maybe offering some help. Sometimes what I have increasingly discovered is you are in this secondary caregiver role. If you're in your 30s or 40s and you're watching your mom or the second wife who maybe is in her 50s or 60s, and she's going through this with her mom who's in her 70s, 80s, or 90s. So we're spanning potentially 6 decades here, but it's oftentimes the child or a spouse who is in a primary caregiver role, and sometimes they find themselves in this secondary role. Hang in there with me. This is going to feel more clear. Sometimes the secondary caregiver is the power of attorney, but they're just not the person who's in town. They live out of town, and there's someone else who's in the same city who's really in the thick of the situation. So just as you're trying to sort through this, are you the one who is scheduling the doctor's appointments and taking them and doing things like that? That's more of a primary role. If you are observing another family member who is having to do all that stuff and you can see that they are so stressed out and overwhelmed, you are probably in the secondary role. My husband and I have been married for 23 years, and we have been on these caregiving journeys together. When I cared for my grandmothers, I lived in town, and my mom lived out of town, as did all my aunts. And my mom was my number one wing woman, and Todd, my husband, was my number one wingman. My mother initially was the power of attorney. And ultimately we did shift that because I was the one in town. So eventually I did become the power of attorney, and I was in that primary role. It can be challenging to have the person who's making the decisions not be the power of attorney. And if we need to unpack that more on a different episode, I'd be happy to do that. Because oftentimes what parents did was they just made the eldest son their POA, but that's not who's doing the caregiving. It's usually the daughter. So it was I was very grateful, and it was very convenient, and it made it so much easier as the granddaughter who was the one who was in the weeds to have that power of attorney. That being said, if the person in town isn't operating in reality of the situation, it is a really good idea to have someone else of influence who can help with directing the situation. So an example of that would be maybe your dad is married to a second wife, and you're the daughter, and you're the power of attorney, and the second wife just doesn't seem to understand the severity of what they're dealing with. And I'll tell you, in that primary caregiver role, my mom was super supportive and helpful and generous. And Todd was so supportive of me in every way imaginable. So some of the things that he did as a secondary caregiver in the situation was like, as our family grew and my caregiving responsibilities increased, he just did everything possible to ensure that I had the time and energy to be sure my grandmas were living their best lives. He was calm. He was a voice of reason, and he created space for me to recharge when I needed it. So that was really helpful for him in a secondary caregiver role to provide me. I kind of imagine him like the trainer or coach in the corner of a boxing ring, and he would like tend to my wounds and pump me up so I could get back into the ring of doing the caregiving. So when we were caring for his parents, he and his brother were the primary caregiver. They were in the primary role. I was in a secondary caregiver role. His brother, being the oldest child, felt a tremendous amount of responsibility, not obligation, but responsibility to help his parents navigate all of this. And we had this little period of time where there was some headbutting going on between us because he felt like, these are his parents. It's his responsibility. I felt like I'm the industry expert and I've done this. But in this situation, I was not the primary caregiver. My husband was, and his brother. So I had been in this field for a really long time, and I also had a really close relationship with his parents. We had our own special connections. And in fact, I've lived the majority of my life closer to my in-laws than my own parents. So I felt very invested in the situation and was really open and available and interested in being that primary caregiver role, but it just wasn't my role. And my brother-in-law, Matt, is the one who reminded me that my role was really to support my husband because his parents would probably be dying within the next 5 years. And so my job was to not create conflict and stress within the family because everybody was already suffering. So when everybody is already in a place where there's heartache and hardship, it was not helpful for me to be stomping my feet and saying, listen, I know how to do this. Let me light the way. My job was to really focus on my husband. So I backed off and I turned my attention to what I could do to help and support my husband. Did he need any help with errands or making, on those days when it's just chaos and there's hospital stays and visits and all of that, like what could I do to support him? Make sure we had dinner and just create soft spaces on those tough days. And I genuinely believe what we get back is what we put out. So ultimately, because I had shifted my energy to feel a little less aggressive and intense, ultimately what happened was my brother-in-law and I had this beautiful conversation where we were both able to share what we were feeling in a really nice, calm manner. And I admitted that I was really eager to help and understood that I wasn't meant to be in charge. I just felt frustrated because I had some experience in the area. So it was a great conversation. I really love my in-laws so much. And the result was that we actually formed a stronger care team bond for their parents. So when I was able to back off a little bit, share how I felt, communicate openly, it meant that I could very, not rapidly, repeatedly, it just meant that I could participate and support in a better way. I was able to actually share thoughts and information that was being received once we moved through that uncomfortable conversation. Some of you listening are watching your family members go through this, and you're trying to figure out how to introduce them to what I offer. Like, what is it that you offer, Michele, and how can you help our family? I would say the first thing is this podcast is a great way to introduce someone to the idea that there are other options and resources out there for them. There are tons of episodes on a wide range of topics. So just scrolling down the list, and if a title grabs you, that's the one to send to them. That's the one your gut, your intuition is saying, I think this could help. So send it to them and just say, I thought you might find this interesting. This podcast interesting. That would be one way that I can help your family. The other thing that I have realized over time is that not everyone wants help. Not everyone is down for podcasting and coaching and growing and trying to figure out a better way. You are, because you're here. There has to be a little space within their minds or a cracked open window that this is a problem that can be solved. So that might be a really good place to start, is asking, do you feel like this is a problem that can be solved? And then opening the conversation up there. Not everyone wants to feel better. I watch people suffer in a way that what I believe is unnecessary all the time. People I love, my friends, my family. Some people feel comfortable being stuck because it's safe. And even though they're miserable, they know what that feels like. We may translate this into stubbornness. They're just stubborn. And we have to remember that that stubbornness has really served them in their life, and it has carried them a really long way. So if you feel like you can't move the needle with them, just you being here and you connecting and getting the information and getting this different perspective can be really supportive of that other person, because they cannot see the forest through the trees. So it's worth sending them an episode to check out. But you being here listening is of tremendous value to them, because it helps you have a calmer energy too. And the ultimate message, of course, is that we're here to work together for the greater good of the person that is needing to be cared for. So as of right now, the 3 ways I can help your family. First is this podcast. There are episodes with industry experts. I interview other family caregivers. I share my own experiences and just generally help people feel better with some different perspectives, because this podcast is a great entry point to feeling calmer and more confident about how to thrive as a family caregiver. I love introducing other businesses on the podcast whose mission on this planet and their focus is to support our families. I love that so much. Secondly, I am currently doing private coaching. I work directly and privately with your family. We meet on Zoom for several weeks. Then as things begin to settle down, we may space our time out together. Most of my families are caring for parent in their 70s to 90s. So it's the adult daughter that is hiring me, and then they're bringing on their siblings and their kids, the grandkids, onto the call. And I can tell you, they feel tremendous peace of mind and relief as we work together, and even after the very first call, and they get clear next steps that they are all in agreement with. And we get to that place working together. Thirdly, I've created an online video program called Illuminating Senior Living. This is the only product like it on the market, and it gives you the best, most comprehensive information about what it could look like for a move to senior living. You want to buy this class now before you need it. And you want to buy this class if someone you love is sitting in the hospital, for sure. You want to buy this class if it's increasingly clear that someone is not safe at home, but they're stubborn and don't want to move. This online class teaches you how to talk to someone about the idea of moving, even if they have repeatedly told you, I will never do it. I will never move. You need to go buy this class right now. And I will put the link in the show notes for the class. So primary caregiver, secondary caregiver, it doesn't matter. What matters is that your family member is well cared for, and that their safety and well-being are okay, and that your family doesn't implode along the way. That's what's important. So I hope in this episode you have some takeaways about who's the primary caregiver, who's the secondary caregiver, kind of what are each of these people doing, and if I'm in a secondary role, how can I best help and support that primary person? I love you, and I see you, and you are doing a great job Keep up the good work. Have a very happy Thanksgiving. And I look forward to talking with you next week. What I know for sure is that things are going fine until they're not. Everyone wants to stay in their home for as long as possible. And then there's a fall or a hospital stay or clear signs of dementia or a diagnosis, and remaining at home becomes questionable or potentially impossible. It is super important that you are informed about what assisted living and nursing home care can offer and understand how to choose the one that will best fit the needs of your family. I know from personal and professional experience what objections are going to come up and how to navigate those conversations. You love your family member and you are doing a great job. It just feels like the situation is fragile. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop and you don't know what you don't know. Illuminating Senior Living answers all of your questions and walks you through step by step each common objection and frequently asked question. This course will save you so much time and heartache. Imagine knowing exactly when it's time to move and ensuring the care and safety of your family member. Imagine knowing what specifically to be looking for in a care community and how to have the conversations about moving. Illuminating Senior Living gives you the roadmap so you're prepared. Click the link in the show notes, Illuminating Senior Living, to secure your video course today.